Ever feel like your prayers are hitting a ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe there's a different way to plug into something bigger.
Yeah.
Well, buckle up because today we're diving into Dr. Roy Richmond's totally fresh take on prayer.
Right. Right.
And because it's less about whispering a wish list and more about tapping into a power source you already have.
And he comes by that honestly, this Dr. Richmond, we're not talking about some guy with a blog.
Right.
This is years of seminary teaching.
Wow.
Multiple degrees, the whole 9 yards. Plus, he went deep, deep, deep into the original Hebrew and Greek of the Bible.
So not just skimming the SparkNotes version here.
No. We're talking original manuscript stuff.
Okay, so the man knows his stuff, clearly.
Yeah.
But what makes his view on prayer so different?
He'd say most of us, we've been praying wrong.
Ooh, that's a bold statement.
Right. Stuck in this loop of asking, begging, maybe even trying to bargain with God.
Yeah.
And then we're left wondering why things aren't happening.
Like, hello? Is this thing on?
Exactly. It's like trying to get a signal on a busted radio.
We've all been there, right? You pour your heart out, and it's crickets.
The worst.
It can really shake your faith, make you question the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what's the alternative?
Okay, so Dr. Richmond, he says we need to shift how we see God.
Okay.
Most of us, we picture this distant figure. Like we need to convince him to lend a hand, right?
Yeah, like a cosmic vending machine.
Right. But the original Hebrew and Greek words for God, they actually mean something closer to spirit or breath.
So less of a guy in the sky and more of an all-encompassing energy force present.
Exactly. And if God is breath and we are breath, that power, that source, it's not out there somewhere, it's in us all the time.
Wow.
Dr. Richmond even tells the story, right?
Yeah.
About feeling this like overwhelming sense of God's presence in a church. And then realizing, wait a minute, he's the one generating it?
Wow, that's powerful. So it changes things when you realize you're the conduit, not just the receiver.
100%.
Okay, so where does prayer fit into this whole God as breath concept?
Well, Dr. Richmond suggests we ditch the word prayer altogether.
Really?
Yeah. He prefers conversation.
Conversation.
Right, because instead of approaching God with a laundry list of what you want, it's about cultivating this inner space for listening, for deep knowing.
So like turning into a frequency.
Yes.
Finding that channel where you can truly hear the message.
Exactly.
But how do you actually do that?
Right.
Is it all meditation cushions and chanting?
Not necessarily. No, Dr. Richmond, he emphasizes this conversation. It can happen anywhere, anytime.
Oh, okay.
He talks about finding these moments of like divine connection while he's gardening, washing dishes, just like living his life. It's about infusing those everyday things, those mundane things with awareness.
Okay, that makes it feel a lot more accessible. It's not about becoming some kind of, spiritual hermit.
Exactly.
But finding those sacred pauses in the everyday.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got God as breath, we've got prayer as conversation. What's next?
Next, we dig into what Dr. Richmond calls the Logos.
The Logos?
Yeah.
Sounds kind of like something you'd order at a fancy coffee shop.
Right.
Like oven iced Logos, oat milk, extra shot.
With a little foam art on top.
Exactly.
Right.
But in this context, I'm guessing it's a little more potent than a triple shot espresso.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So break it down for us. What's the Logos and why should we care?
So Dr. Richmond, he's drawing on this old Greek idea of the Logos.
Okay.
Not just as a word, like the word of God, though it's got that going on too, but as this fundamental, like, creative force woven into everything.
Okay.
Like the universe's operating system, the intelligence behind it all.
Okay, so it's big.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
We're not talking small potatoes here.
No. This is universal.
And here's where things get really interesting, at least for me. Dr. Richmond says this Logos, it isn't something separate from us.
Right.
It's in us. We're not just part of the universe. We've got a spark of its creative engine inside us.
Exactly.
That's mind-blowing.
It is. It's like, imagine we've each got this wellspring of potential, this power to make our desires real. But most of us, we just haven't figured out how to tap into it.
So it's not about wishing really hard. Or
No.
It's about aligning ourselves with this Logo.
Yes.
This universal force.
Exactly. He uses this example, Dr. Richmond, of a rocket scientist, right?
Okay.
They don't just slap a rocket together and hope it flies.
Right.
They rely on the laws of physics.
Gravity, aerodynamics.
All of that. It's the same with prayer or conversation, as Dr. Richmond would say. It's less about begging for what we want,
Yeah.
and more about aligning our thoughts, words, actions with those natural laws that govern how things actually manifest.
So it's about trusting the design in ourselves and the universe.
100%.
So instead of like praying for patience, we try to tap into the patience that's already within us, already part of that Logos blueprint.
Now you're getting it. And that brings us to what might be Dr. Richmond's most radical idea.
Okay, hit me.
We're not just here to soak up the divine.
Right.
We're meant to be the divine in the world.
Whoa.
We're graduating from spiritual consumers to creators.
Okay, now we're really cooking with gas.
Yes.
So we're not just praying to a higher power.
Yeah.
We're meant to embody that power.
Yes.
Express it through our actions. Wow.
It's a big responsibility.
It is.
Right. And it makes every choice, every interaction really count.
Mm-hmm.
Are we reflecting love, compassion,
Yeah.
wisdom, those divine qualities? Or are we contributing to the noise,
Mm-hmm.
the chaos? It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about striving to embody those qualities more and more each day.
This is giving me chills, honestly.
Yeah.
Just imagine the ripple effect if we all, if we all started living from that place of awareness.
Right.
That understanding that we're not separate from the divine, but expressions of it.
It's a total paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
And it all comes back to this idea of recognizing the logos within us and tapping into it.
It's like we're all walking around with these spiritual generators inside us, just waiting to be flipped on. So how do we flip the switch?
Right?
How do we practically apply these big, profound ideas in our everyday lives? It's like we've been handed the keys to this amazing, high-powered sports car,
Right.
but we're still figuring out how to get it out of first gear.
Yeah.
So how do we actually live this Logos-infused life? Not just think about it, but really do it.
Well, Dr. Richmond, he comes back to this idea of the inner conversation,
Okay.
creating that quiet, receptive space where we can hear those whispers of the divine. It's almost like we need to, download the user manual
Right.
before we can take this thing for a spin.
So that stillness, that inner work, it's essential,
Yeah.
but it's not the finish line, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about taking what we receive in those quiet moments and actually doing something with it.
Right. It's like that old saying, to know and not to do is not yet to know. Dr. Richmond, he's all about bridging that gap, between thinking about it and actually doing it.
Right.
Between contemplation and creation. And he says every interaction, every choice we make, it's a chance to express those divine qualities we're cultivating on the inside.
So it's not about becoming some kind of spiritual superhero overnight.
No.
It's those small daily choices, right?
Yeah.
Choosing patience over frustration.
Yeah.
Kindness instead of judgment. Forgiveness instead of holding a grudge.
Yes.
Those little acts, they add up.
Absolutely. And he uses this really cool image, Dr. Richmond. He says, imagine you're holding a candle in a dark room.
Okay.
Right? That candle, that's the divine spark in you. And every act of kindness, every moment of just being present, it's like you're sharing that light with the world.
And even the smallest act of light can make a difference, right?
Yeah. It's sad about these grand gestures, but showing up as the best version of ourselves in every moment.
Yes.
Which, I'll be honest, sounds a little daunting sometimes, too.
Yeah.
What if we mess up?
Right.
What if we forget to flip the switch,
Well, that's where grace comes in.
Grace.
Right.
Okay.
We're all works in progress.
Of course, yeah.
The important thing is to approach this whole thing not from needing to be perfect,
Right.
but from a place of curiosity and compassion
Okay.
for ourselves and for everyone else.
Yeah.
We're all just out here doing the best that we can with what we've got.
Right. And every day is a new chance to learn to grow.
Exactly.
Like we're all on this amazing adventure of spiritual evolution.
Yes.
Constantly discovering new things about ourselves.
Right.
New ways to express that divine potential.
Love that.
So to wrap things up, if someone's listening to this and they're feeling really inspired by what we've talked about, Dr. Richmond's ideas.
But maybe a little overwhelmed. Where do I even begin? What would you tell them? What's the most important takeaway?
Start with that inner conversation.
Okay.
Even if it's just a few minutes each day.
Yeah.
To get quiet.
Right.
To breathe.
Yeah.
To connect with that source of peace and wisdom that's already there inside you. And from that place, from that stillness, the path, it unfolds organically. Trust the process.
Beautiful. And maybe, maybe next time you're washing dishes or stuck in traffic,
Right.
maybe that's your next divine conversation waiting to happen.
Exactly.
You never know. This has been an amazing deep dive.
Yes, it has.
Eye-opening, thought-provoking, maybe even life-changing for some of us. Big thanks to Dr. Roy Richmond for these powerful ideas, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on the journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.